Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I ask you all to imagine that you are alone in this room, that there is no one around you, there is no one on the stage. And I want you to ask yourself one question. Am I safe? Ask yourself, am I safe? Good afternoon, Toastmasters and guests.
Good afternoon.
In general, I find that the Toastmasters community is a more comfortable and happy space than other places. And therefore, when I ask myself if I'm safe, I am. I am safe in this room. But am I safe in this building? Am I safe on the street, in this city? Am I safe in this country or this world that we routinely describe as a cruel, cruel place? Am I safe from the pain and suffering of this world? That is something that we constantly ask ourselves. Everyone is asking themselves if they are safe. But here is the thing. If you look around right now, you will see another person asking themselves the same thing. And another. And another. And you will realize that the question changes from am I safe to are we safe? 2016 has been a difficult year for the world. Right now, there are thousands of civilians in Aleppo, Syria, fearing for their lives. Terrorism in Syria, France, the United States, and many other places has cast a black shroud on the world. In 2016, millions mourned the deaths of beloved celebrities such as Alan Rickman, Prince, David Bowie, and Muhammad Ali, among so many others. The shooting of Harambe the gorilla caused massive uproar on the internet. At such a time, someone will tell you that the world is a horrible place, that every day we stray further from God and the world is going to hell. With all this comes disillusionment and demoralization. Not demonetization, demoralization. And as I was given this opportunity to speak to you today, I found it imperative to address this. I will never be able to forgive myself if I don't tell you now that the world is not a horrible place and the world is not going to hell. Are we safe? Every day, the media and news bombard us with fear and danger, so much so that we carry our problems with us all the time. We all have a problem in our head at all times, whatever it may be, family, wealth, depression, loneliness, whatever. And when you have these problems in your head, they start affecting the decisions you make. A father worried about the expense of bringing up their child might find themselves walking home rather than taking the bus one day just to save a few rupees. I myself get so engrossed in whatever problem I'm dealing with that I start skipping out on basic needs such as meals and sleep. Just last night, I didn't sleep because I was editing this speech. I know, such a problem, right? But no, the question becomes, how do we come out of our own heads? How do we bring ourselves out of that? How do we stop worrying? Well, a parent might stop worrying about their child temporarily when their partner comes to them, sits down, brings them a cup of tea, and says, it'll be okay. A patient might stop worrying about their impending surgery when the doctor gives them hope. Hope is the word. Hope doesn't make our problems go away, but it gives us the strength to deal with them. Problems exist at every level. Bangalore's lakes are dying. I live near Varthur Lake and it regularly foams over because it's so polluted with toxic waste. But I find hope in the actions of the Ugly Indians group and their Kaam Chalu Move On movement, where they clean up Bangalore one spot at a time. A lot has been said about the Kaveri River issue between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. Delhi right now is choking on its own air. But when Virat Kohli is batting at 94, the country forgets for a while as we all together hope for a six. Problems exist at every level, but so does hope. So, how do you bring hope to the entire world? Well, that is where the global goals come in. On September 25th, 2015, 193 world leaders got together to commit to 17 global goals to achieve 3 amazing things by 2030. End extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and fix climate change. They committed to 17 goals, which I'm not going to cover. You can find more information about this on globalgoals.org, but I can give you a few points. For example, goal number 15 is life on land. Put in place sustainable land practices, fight desertification, and stop deforestation. Now, these goals are a serious commitment. They weren't messing around when they made these goals. You should only know that this represents a serious step forward by humanity to answering the question, are we safe? Now, a cynic might tell me, as I'm sure some of you are thinking, Vaibhav, how can you be sure that these goals will be effective? How can you be sure that action will be taken? These are just empty promises. Well, I can't be sure, but I'm hopeful because we've done it before. Get ready for some uplifting truth because this is the fun part of the speech. In September 2000, when the world was still getting used to changing the calendar dates, world leaders came together and made the ultimate New Year's resolution. They committed to 8 Millennium Development Goals for a period between 1990 and 2015. Now, I cannot cover all 8 goals because that's a half an hour presentation by itself. But I can give you some highlights. Goal number 1 was to cut in half the proportion of people living in extreme poverty in the world. That is, living for less than $1.25 a day. Now, that doesn't seem possible in 25 years, but we did it. In 1990, 1.9 billion people lived in extreme poverty. In 2015, that number was a billion less, even after adjusting for inflation and other factors. Another goal number 2, was to achieve universal primary education. We brought up the global literacy rate in 1990 from 85% to 2015, 91%, which means 500 million more people now are able to read and write. 500 million, that's a lot of people. Another goal was to fix gender inequality. In 1990, for every 100 boys in school, there were 75 girls in South Asia. Can you guess the ratio today?
Reversed.
I'm glad you're also hopeful. In 2015, for every 100 boys in school, there were 103 girls in South Asia. And women now make up 41% of the global non-agricultural workforce, with more representation in offices and in parliaments. These goals were not completed, but such progress was made. And I will leave it up to you to look up the Millennium Development Goals report and see what happened. But for now, let's step away from the numbers, let's step away from the promises and come back to basics. Do we have hope? Are we safe? The data definitely shows. The data represents a unified world fighting for our goals of safety, stability, and growth. At this time, I ask you to make a commitment, not to me. Make a commitment to yourselves. Let us trickle down the hope that the world has to each and every one of us. Let us bring that hope in the decisions. If you do not believe that things are getting better, if you are not able to convert hope into action, then how will the world ever be a safer place? Thank you.